Morning, beautiful people. I am Vicky Jeter, your practitioner, spiritual director for Louisville Center for Spiritual Living Teaching Chapter. Yes, for those of you wondering, as of today, I am still your practitioner, spiritual director. My ministerial licensing has been delayed for just a bit, and I'll tell you all more about that in sharing time. This time in our opening service is for setting intention, individually and together. So I invite you to take a few seconds to set your intention for being here today. Settle in a bit to where you are, get really comfortable, and touch in to what inspired you to be with us today. And we get to express our shared intention today to support each other in the courage to live from our true thoughts and feelings, more freely expressing from our authentic selves. It might seem like you would say, oh, well, it's easy for me to be me. But we're going to see what you think by the end of the discussion. So let us begin at the beginning of service in gratitude. Thank you, Spirit, for the gift of this day that opens the package for the adventures and opportunities for good and more good in our lives. And from this space, I recognize that there is one and only one power and presence that is the source of all that is. At every point, in every way, are the qualities of God: love, peace, joy, harmony, communion, and it is, the great divine it is right here and right now, by any name. And knowing that this is the case, I am that, as each person within the sound of my voice, according to your understanding, your way, your names for God. You are one with your source, and we are one together as Louisville Center for Spiritual Living Teaching Chapter, in mind, heart, and soul. And from this alignment, I realized right here and right now that in the giving and receiving of this opportunity to explore more deeply what it means to live authentically and what resources and games we play with ourselves, both, in how we do or not do that we come away this day understanding more about ourselves and about each other to prosper everything about how we move forward. And so for this time, I'm so grateful. Thank you, presence of life. With the heart of a child, I release it to allow it to be, and so it is. Amen. And so I do welcome each and every one of you with my whole heart to Louisville Center for Spiritual Living Teaching Chapter. Whether you're here with us this morning or watching on Zoom, thank you for your presence today. I start each day greeting God, the angels, LCSL as an entity, and each and every one of you. Vernon and I set up and light our God candle, inviting everyone who is seeking to find us. I hope it's the first thing you see when you pop into our Zoom room. Know that you are welcome, no matter what faith or path of life you came from, no matter what you were taught to believe initially. All are welcome here. Now moving to our mission and vision. The mission of Louisville Center for Spiritual Living is to teach personal transformation as a virtual community, living the principles of science of mind and celebrating all paths to God. And our vision statement: a world that honors and respects all people is our truth. So spiritual living is only as good as we can relate to it and as actually applies to our daily lives. So each week we have an application of what we believe. These are thoughts to put into practice and perhaps for discussion during opportunities like sharing time at the end of service. So this week's application of what we believe is light is to be revealed, not concealed. It is exhausting to try to be what you are not. Now for our open song, We Welcome You, Spirit by Kai Lee.
We welcome you, Spirit, as we gather here to love one another in ways you make clear. We lift up our hearts in joy and open our minds. We welcome you, Spirit, in this holy time. We welcome you, Spirit, as we gather here to love one another in ways you make clear. We lift up our hearts in joy and open our minds. We welcome you, Spirit, in this holy time. We welcome you, Spirit, in this holy time.
Good morning. We welcome you here for this time together. And as we do that, we are here today to share some thoughts and opportunities on the masks that we put on as we move forward in our evolution of spirit. My reading for today is from the Science of Mind magazine in March, and the reading is by Reverend Dr. Jesse Jennings. He shares an understanding of authenticity. Being authentic yourself means being yourself by your own guiding lights and not retreating into conformity or what's expected of you by anybody. It means listening to your feelings, making your own choices, blazing your own trail, and so forth. Authenticity is an ideal, similar to happiness and satisfaction. These are great states of being to aspire to, and yet they ebb and flow rather than being on arrival and staying. In human relationships, a person's authenticity or self-sovereignty has to work hand in hand with others' sense of self. Mutually rewarding relationships require negotiation, compromise, and the periodic relinquishing of power. But at the same time, you never entirely submerge your inner vision, because sustaining a relationship as a whole requires that relationship to be open to the give and take. You're open about changes, surprises, and apparent setbacks because you are convinced at a deep level that these are occurring within the context of your greater good. I welcome you now to a contemplation time. And as you may have observed, we're talking today as an introduction for what are the masks we wear to hide our authenticity. So I'd like for you for this time period to settle in and see yourself knocking on the door of a room. As you enter that room, you see a round table with multiple aspects of yourself sitting around that table. And there's an empty chair just waiting for you, as if you intend to sit down and enjoy these aspects of yourself. And you do that. And you take a deep breath and you look around the table. And you make a connection to that part of you that wants to be seen as strong and confident. Think for a moment about some mask you might be wearing when you don't feel that way. Take a moment to appreciate that part of you and the mask just the way it is. And now feel how it feels to drop that mask so that you can truly see yourself authentically. See yourself that might not have felt strong or confident, and fill yourself with acceptance and love. Now make a connection with that part of you that wants to hide your fears. What mask do you wear when you're afraid? Take a moment to appreciate that part of you and that mask just the way it is. Now within, see how it feels when you drop that mask and you see yourself authentically. As you see yourself, you feel those fears. You feel and fill those fears with acceptance and love. Make a connection with the part of you that has felt at times that you're just not enough. What mask do you sometimes wear to hide that sense of unworthiness? Take a moment and appreciate that part of you and the mask just the way it is. Now, see how it feels to drop that mask so you can see yourself authentically. See the self that has not felt you're enough. Fill up with acceptance and love. Finally, in this practice at this time, see that connection with yourself that has felt unattractive. What mask do you pretend to wear when you feel beautiful? Take a moment and appreciate that support. And now that mask drops away so you can indeed see yourself authentically. Feel that sense with acceptance and love. Thank you for joining me in this time of contemplation. And we move now to special music. I Surrender by Karen Drucker.
I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I am stronger every moment, every day. My mind is willing and my heart is open wide. I trust my instincts and let spirit be my guide. I vow to live a life that's real and pure and free, as I continue walking in this mystery. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I am grateful every moment, every day. There may be walls, there may be roadblocks in my way, but I can choose to take a higher path each day. And now I know that what I thought was safe and sound was only habit and regret that held me down. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I am kinder every moment, every day. And I'm more loving every moment, every day. I will surrender every moment, every day.
My. It occurs to me to just acknowledge that we actually have two community members this morning who could have been in that video, Miss Alexa and Michaela. I think about that every time I watch that. So, our theme for 2023 is Living Out Loud, which is about the courage and freedom to live by our true thoughts and feelings without the need to apologize for it. Our theme for March is cultivating authenticity. And our theme for today, as Bev so beautifully introduced us into, is living authentically and dropping our masks. So we wear masks in celebration for fun, like this is Mardi Gras season. I know probably a lot of you have been playing with Mardi Gras masks. And we also wear masks to feel safe, like from COVID. And then we wear masks energetically for our hearts to keep them safe. That is, until they don't keep us safe anymore. So we're going to be kind of toggling back and forth between these different states about masks. Vulnerability empowers us to drop the masks that are not serving the good we had intended at one time, and it lets more of our natural light shine. So throughout this discussion today, there can be several opportunities to get in touch with the masks you've worn throughout your life. And as the different kinds come up, really greet yourself and practice more of what Bev offered us. And if you actually have something that you can use as a mask, I encourage you to actually physically work with that. So as different kinds of things come up, and pardon me, and you get in touch with them, see what they have to say to you and see how they feel coming and going. Now, we're going to look at this and practice today from these different perspectives. What does living authentically mean? How do we know when we're being authentic with ourselves or the world? Then we're going to look at masks as natural camouflage, because that's a very important recognition to have, that actually our tendency to want to do that is a force of nature. And then we're going to look at what drives us to act differently than we feel. And do we even know how we really feel? I came upon a new term recently that I really, really like that's called frenzy culture. We'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. And how to stay in touch with and live from our authentic selves ultimately easier and more often. So to begin with, the authentic self is one of those terms that feels like everyone should know what it means. But each person is very likely to have a different experience of it, a different idea of what it is. And that's because it is a profoundly subjective term, the word authentic itself. And then when you apply it to me, then it really gets personal. So it's just not an easy thing to put into a box. And so that is to say, it is deeply internal, down inside each person. And what it is and how it feels cannot be objectively measured. So here we can turn to the wisdom of Ernest Holmes in our application of principle from last Sunday. The authentic self is at the level of the soul. It does not need to be empowered because it already is. So here is a wonderful confirmation of spiritual truth that gets revealed all around us and the power of words that we use. The authentic self is at the level of the soul. And in the universal creative process, for those of you who might remember our science of mind symbol, the soul is the subjective that's in the middle of that circle. And it's actually considered to be the level of the law. And that speaks to the universality of the soul level that we're reaching for when we talk about the authentic self. So, how do we know when we're in touch with our souls? There are so many ways to try to say this. The best way that I know is that your soul is the part of you that's timeless, and that touches into that universality. It's the part of you, perhaps way deep inside, that feels the same no matter how old you are, no matter what you've been through. It is the part of us that is not impacted by the passing years or the changing of opinions that people have about us, or even opinions we have about ourselves. There is a stability at the level of the soul that is unchanging. I know, just to give you an example, what I always think of is when I had older brothers, and when I was 5 and they were 8 and 18 or 13, I was always thinking at some point I would feel like them. And so I'd say to myself, oh, in 3 years I'll be 8 and then I'll be like Casey. And then I would get to where I was 8 and I still felt like I did when I was 5. And I would keep projecting that out, trying to like catch up with them. And I finally realized that that part of me didn't matter how old I was. I still felt the same. I felt the same when I was 4 as I did when I was 14. So maybe think about that a little bit and see if you can find that thread within you that actually hasn't changed, that knows who you are. So, what causes us to lose touch with our souls? The wellspring of our knowing of who we are, free to live what we truly feel and believe. How do we lose touch with that? When and how do we take on developing our masks and hiding behind them? So as with many, many human actions and behaviors, the tendency to hide and to keep ourselves safe has a foundation in nature. It's an instinct to try to hide or disguise ourselves. And so get ready to go back to them. This is our first slide for today's presentation. And this is an actual picture. So just take a moment to take that in and see how profoundly the intelligence, the omniscience of God works with that creature to disguise it so that it knows how to feel safe without even trying. That is natural camouflage. And all creatures have some form of that desire or potential. And as we became increasingly conscious, we became increasingly able to do that intentionally. And then the interesting thing is, just like an affirmation, we start out intentionally and then we do it over and over again. And the next thing we know, it's happening automatically and we don't recognize that we're doing it. Reflecting on this, it is a given that one quality that supports being able to drop our masks is feeling safe enough. Just as we talked about last fall, about how closely we are related to the earth, anytime we can add to our awareness the nature of what's happening can lend tremendous wisdom to what can make it easy to do what we choose to do and make a different choice. Now, to further answer the question of how our masks develop, in some ways, the masks we wear are a lot like the various hats we wear. You know, you've got your parent hat on when you're dealing with your kids, and then you turn right around and swap that one for your daughter or son hat when you're with your parents, and your brother and sister hat when you're with your siblings. And so, like for our little family that's with us this morning, Katrina and her children, the kids have on their kid hat with their parents, and Katrina has her parent hat on with her kids, and then the girls together have their sibling hat on because they're there together having this experience. So at family gatherings, say with your family of origin, such as holidays, most of us keep a hat rack, a mobile. I don't know if you remember the hat racks that would spin around. And so it spins around like a lazy Susan because there are so many hats. And sometimes it's impossible to switch roles fast enough to see which SWAT we're happening into next and keep up with what's happening. And then we find ourselves trying to wear 2 or 3 or 10 hats all at the same time. Then you've got your friend hat or your neighbor hat or your employer hats and your employee hats. The list could go on and on, depending on how we handle and balance our various roles. It can easily feel overwhelming, such as, I wanted to name this guy, but I didn't get to that before we started service this morning. So exactly which hats you wear, when and why, is uniquely individual. It's an adventure, and it's an adventure that's well worth taking because it's a fabulous way to get to know yourself. So what is the distinction between the various hats we wear and the masks we wear? The symbols of the hats we wear tend to signify the roles we have taken on, and perhaps we've come to identify ourselves with those roles. Just as importantly, other people certainly come to identify us by the roles we play in their lives, and they get really comfortable with us filling those roles. Here is one of the most essential benefits in reaching for living authentically for yourself, no matter what your roles are or how many roles you have. Becoming entrenched in our roles can create distance, actually, in the potentials for sincere connection and relationship. The longer a person is identified by the role they're playing, the more likely it is that richer, more intimate chances for a relationship, really knowing each other at a deeper level, are decreased because we're not taking the time to go there. We begin developing masks when fulfilling the perceived role that we play becomes our first priority. When who we really are and how we really feel gets swept under the rug inside us in favor of some form of perceived acceptance by others. It's not that the reality that we have all lived behind some masks is bad or wrong. It's natural. The question is, how aware are we when we're living behind a mask? And do we know why we are not being authentic in the moment? This is a question where consciousness and knowing we have a choice is key. For example, people who suffer from biochemical depression often feel that they have to hide their suffering because friends and family don't want to hear it. People living with depression often believe expressing the truth of how they feel brings the people around them down, and that people won't want to have them around if they're feeling depressed. If you have had this kind of struggle, you might have a set of masks that looks like this. Verna's going to put this up on the screen for us. As you can see, this mask is both sad and appears to be happy at the same time. And it's a very, very confusing state to have to live in. A person in this predicament may be feeling profoundly sad or lost and try to force themselves to seem happy, even not only just for other people, but they're trying to force themselves to seem happy even for themselves, because feeling depressed can get so tiring. If you can relate to this, or if it has brought up a similar mask that you have worn, see if you can compassionately drop the mask, as Bev suggested in the meditation. Take this opportunity in this safe space to see how it would feel to let that down. Now let's take a breath. Another example of a common mask we wear is when we avoid a difficult conversation or circumstance that we need to address with someone or some area of our lives, or when we haven't found ourselves being completely honest about something and we're recognizing we're really going to have to clear that up. So that mask, go ahead to the next mask, Vern. So this is the mask of light and shadow. We find ourselves divided inside. There is positives and negatives, it seems, no matter how we look at it. And we have to find a way to get clear and allow ourselves to find the authenticity, to name the truth and stand in the truth, even when it's really, really hard. The longer you try to avoid a difficult situation, the harder it gets to address it. The more out of integrity we become with ourselves. And the more out of integrity we become with ourselves, the more distant we are from that authentic, empowered place that Ernest Holmes was speaking of. So just take another breath. Who knows where this is taking you all? I just want to give it space. The last example we have to share together today is when we hide behind jokes and laughter, the court jester, and we're hiding actually our insecurities, fear, or sadness. So the next slide, Vernon. Let me get my little court jester here. And I think we've all tried to be there. I never was good at being the jokester or the court jester. My brother was. My brother Casey was very good at that. He could take any situation and pop into the middle of it and make people laugh. And when I'd be getting in trouble, he would make my mom laugh, and then everything was all turned upside down and very confusing for me. He wore this mask a lot. And I have a feeling all of us have either done this one or tried this one. And just take a moment to find a time when you either witness that or experience it yourself, and imagine letting that go. Now, in addition to all of this, it really takes a much greater toll on us to hide the truth than it does to simply be real. Once we find the courage and the necessary support needed to begin living more authentically. Light is to be revealed, not concealed. It is exhausting to be or try to be what we are not. It takes a toll on us when we are working on being to others what we are not, yet we wear these masks or hide because at some level we believe in our own thoughts and feelings and opinions that they might not be acceptable, perhaps to others, perhaps even to ourselves. A lot of times people actually are raised and sort of molded into being one way, and it might be, you know, your early 20s or so before it begins to dawn on you that that's not who you really are and how you really feel. And then what do? Because how did that happen? Dropping our masks is a way of restoring our own self-worth and self-respect. And it's a process. And sometimes it has to be done just a drop at a time. While hiding behind a mask may feel like it's keeping us safe, it not only takes energy away from us, it keeps us from experiencing a real heart connection with others. Instead of our whole self in our truth, they will see a two-dimensional mask we hold up like the black and the white, displaying what we think we should be rather than who we really are, pretending to be okay when in fact everything is not really okay, and then it just builds up on itself. Masks keep us tied to the past. We continue to play a part of a past role or narrative. And so to step into the present truth and power, we are asked to be courageously vulnerable, to put down the mask and remove the bushel basket it's hiding us under. We must speak our truth and be who we were meant to be as we discover that one moment or one day at a time. So now I want to shift the discussion to something I learned in a workshop just the other day that I found extremely insightful. And this is about what can make it difficult to stay in touch with ourselves, that actually is very different than anything that we talked about so far. And I think it's so applicable. I was listening to a wonderful man I'd never heard of before named Sean Ginwright. And he was speaking on what kinds of most basic adjustments we need to have happen in our culture overall to solve some of our most pressing challenges. And he said that the continuous pace of life we're moving through now, and that things are just going faster and faster, like everybody's trying to go at the electronic pace, the email pace, you know. And his term for it is frenzy culture. Frenzy culture is the result of a person who has gotten so caught up in the doing of their lives always needing to get to the next thing done, that they're not actually fully present to any of the moments of their lives. They're just moving through one thing to the next to the next. It is not possible to truly think or feel clearly under these conditions. So, a very good practice is to check in with yourself about this and take good care of your connection to your soul, your authentic self, is to practice stopping several times a day to really get present to whatever you might be doing in the moment, and stop and ask yourself, how do I feel right now? How do I feel about this? Under this kind of condition, it is important to realize that developing masks in this case isn't about protection. In some ways, people are moving through their days, experiences, and relationships on autopilot and have not even been in touch with how they feel or who they know themselves to be. Some of the conditions related to frenzy culture that are more commonly known now, and thank God being talked about, are burnout and sleep deprivation. So these are things that people have started working on, but I think a recognition of this idea that if we're just moving from one thing to the next, and we really don't take those pauses, not only to just breathe, but also to drop in and say, how do I feel? And so one thing that Sean Ginwright said that I just love, he said, what's the definition of rest? Today, we often think about it as, oh, well, thank God I got a good night's sleep. But he says, rest is the ability to not work and not feel guilty about it. Whatever it is you're doing while you're not working, rest is the ability to, quote unquote, not work and not feel guilty about it. So, taking all of this into the courage to begin living authentically, certainly spiritual practices, especially meditation and treatment, are key, because these practices ignite our consciousness and the heart where the soul resides. The more investment we have in cultivating that consciousness, the more fruitful our desire to live authentically will be. Now, I have a quick story I want to tell you from my life, and I'm not going to embellish a whole bunch of details, but I was in a special school for people with disabilities until I was 11, through sixth grade. I was in a special school. And in seventh grade, thank goodness, I was mainstreamed into junior high. And I went from very small classes of kids like me, if you will, into the mainstream of regular public school where almost no one was like me. There was one other student that was with me that I went to school with. He was mainstream with me, but that was about it for kids on crutches in the school that I went to. And oh my goodness, if you ever wanted to imagine someone who wanted to appear differently than she was, I would do anything short of, breaking the law. I would have done anything to have been accepted by my peers. And that equated to doing things like, cutting class and smoking in the bathroom because that's what the kids were doing. I mean, that was as far from my authentic being as anyone could possibly imagine. I can't stand cigarettes, couldn't stand them then, can't stand them now. And there I was, lighting up at 12 years old just to be accepted by my peers. And what I had to learn, and I had to learn it really quickly, is that I had to live more within myself and not be tracking what everyone perceived of me, not be hearing people that wondered, was I retarded, or what was my problem, or this or that or the other thing. And it took me a couple of years. For the whole time I was in junior high, I did some crazy things trying to be accepted by my peers. And thank the Lord, before I got into high school, before I got into the 9th grade, I had it more figured out. And I learned how to walk through the world. What's the title of that book? What You Think of Me Is None of My Business. And I encourage you guys, however this is striking you, you can get to the place where, unless it really matters and you're really with someone that you would want their opinion, you can get to the place where you can say to yourself, what someone else thinks of me is none of my business. And so, in closing, this week, I encourage you to invest extra time in investigating how you really feel about various parts of your life and your daily experiences. Go only as fast or as slow as the slowest part of you is willing and able to go, because this is the true level of authentic expression. When we push ourselves past the part of us that needs us to go slower, that's when we start needing to develop a protection, because part of us isn't ready. And so this is the form of authentic expression and connection where we can experience the love, compassion, and communal connection, global connection that we're all seeking and deserve. And with that, let us take a breath and drop into the space for affirmative prayer. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God, for what has gone and what has come in its place. I recognize that the oneness of all that is right here, right now, has been, and will be throughout the remainder of this communal experience, throughout the remainder of the days and lives of each person here present. And as I recognize the one power, the one love, the one law, as supporting and sustaining all of this, we are one with it, each individually and collectively, right here, right now, consciously in tune with that soul level, with that I am that I am at the level of law, which cannot be changed. And from this alignment in mind, heart, and soul, I realize in my experience of each person here present, each person listening to my voice, and this community as a whole, that the highest and best is already in motion, because spirit loves an opportunity to play. And so for this opportunity, for knowing that even when it feels so incredibly serious, it is playfulness to God. To God, the whole arena in which we live is like one great big masquerade in a way, because we cannot be separated from the wholeness from which we come. And so with all of this and more, I simply say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And with the heart of a child, I release it, I let it be, and so it is.
Thank you, Vicky. This is the opportunity that we offer you to affirm with us the oneness that we all have together. And that's through our giving support to LCSL. We appreciate you. We know and accept your tithes, your givingness, your support right here and right now. And we invite you with us to say this March affirmation. I have the confidence and the courage to see abundance everywhere. My financial prosperity is blessed. It is indeed blessed right here and right now. And we say thank you for your many, many gifts and tithes and blessings. Knowing that, I asked Vicky to bless that blessing, the blessings that you bring to us.
Notice that nice little pause that Spirit put in there? It was divine perfection because I was so into it, I forgot to grab my basket. And so, bless this vessel that is our symbol of the giving and receiving. I am so grateful for that which has been manifest in all that we have now, and representing that which is coming through in this flow, in this opportunity that we create in this atmosphere. For I know and declare right here and right now that that flow keeps moving, and as the gifts move through, they move right back and come back to each one of you tenfold, because that is the nature of the universe. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. We know that every dime, every penny, every blessing emotionally is received under the law and magnified to bless ourselves and our communities around us. And so it is.
As I begin announcements, and I know they're going to come up here shortly to help me. Aha! As I begin announcements, the first thing on the list is our Wednesday Wistful Wisdom. Now, you might not have heard of that because it's fairly new. And because of that, I'm going to ask Vicky, who I believe came up with the Wistful Wisdom part, how this group is operating and how they would welcome you to it.
So we're having a tremendous amount of fun. This is a group that was initiated by Samantha and Gordon. It happens every Wednesday at 11 o'clock in the morning Eastern time on this Zoom. And we literally come together with our wisdom, but from a place of memory and heartfeltness, and just talking about things that what goes on in other parts of our lives doesn't really give room for, like remembering time before electronics, and remembering the songs and the stories and the creativity of decades past. It's just a whole lot of fun, and we do drop into prayer and we do some meditation. It's just a beautiful thing. So anyone that's been looking for a little extra something might come and try this if you're available at 11 o'clock on Wednesdays. And I know that Samantha and Gordon would be just delighted to have you. I see Miss Samantha just smiling there. Go ahead.
Coming up is our men's group this coming Thursday at 6:30, March the 16th. And they don't ever tell me what they're talking about or focusing on. There must be some reason for that. Anyway, we invite you to join them into the men's group. Next week, our speaker is fairly familiar to everyone. She's going to be talking about living authentically. Boundaries build bridges. Looking forward, Vicky, to hearing this upcoming talk. I'm going to turn this one back to Vicky because she has worked hard to enable this first opportunity for people, and she will share it if you'd like to join them. So she will share it to see if you might like to join them. Vicky.
Well, you pretty much said it all, Bev. Beyond Limits is coming up. Class starts on the 20th of March, and cost for the class is $150. That does not need to be paid in all one chunk, as long as it's paid by like the 8th week, and this will run through May 22nd. So you've got plenty of time, you know, $20 at a time to pay the tuition. The books, there's only 2 required books that come to a total of actually less than $40. At the time I did this, I was trying to make sure that I didn't undercut that. I was still researching it, but it's all good. And right now there's about 6 people already registered. If you would like to join us, we would love to have you. Just, I need to know. So just email or call me, or let me know somehow.
Okay. Let me remind you that after our benediction today, we have a sharing time each week, and we invite you to stay for that if you can. And following that sharing time, I will certainly be available for individual prayer for those of you who might choose it or wish it. And we are indeed together through this process. Thank you for coming today. Let's close with giving it your best effort on You Are Magnificent.
You are magnificent.
You are magnificent. Thank you. Our closing song is True Colors by the One Voice Children's Choir.
The sad eyes. Don't be discouraged, though I realize it's hard to take courage in a world full of people. You can lose sight of it all, and the darkness there inside you makes you feel so small. But I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors are beautiful like a rainbow. Show me a smile then. Don't be unhappy, can't remember when I last saw you laughing. If this world makes you crazy and you've taken all you can bear, you call me up because you know I'll be there. And I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors are beautiful like a rainbow. Let them show your true colors. See your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show. And I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors are beautiful like a rainbow. I see your true colors.
Too much fun. I don't know how they do that. I don't know what those the colors that they're using are. I always wonder about like breathing, but nobody seems to be bothered. So I would love to know what that is. And I just invite us to say together our benediction, which is my favorite part of the Irish blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind always be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the wind and rain fall softly on your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you and enfold you tight in the palm of his hands.